You ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 189. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us at the website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, basically everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and you can get us automatically every week in your ear holes. Matt, this is a first for us. We are actually recording in the same location in the dungeon of the Fortress of Nerditude. How are you?
I am great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for allowing me to join you as well.
Yes, you're welcome. It is both of our pleasures to be here. Yes, we're in the dungeon.
We are in the dungeon
together.
Of the Fortress of Nerditude.
Live. You're hearing us live, by the way.
That's true. This podcast is recorded live before a studio audience.
That's right.
So the funny thing about this is that I've done this one other time, and I did it with my first co-host, Steve. And we did the thing where we tried both separately recording in the same room on two microphones, and it was horrible because we had all this feedback. And you brought your microphone.
I did.
And you had to go through a bunch of extra security screening.
I did.
All for us to realize that it's going to be better to record off a single microphone.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
We should have thought of that before. I don't know why we didn't talk about that.
Because we're dumb idiots.
Oh, well.
As you say, you're a simple man.
I am a simple man.
And I'm just a dumb idiot.
Yeah. Well, you said it.
I say it all the time. So anyway, how has your week been?
Oh, man. It's been a week. Let's see. The big thing, obviously, is we're here in Montana.
Yep.
Visiting the in-laws. And we were kind of nervous. I don't remember if we talked about this last week, but the fact of flying during this recent resurgence. And now it's
going
not
nuts.
just a resurgence.
Right.
I mean, it's way beyond what it was before.
Yep.
Especially in Texas, that I wasn't stoked on flying. Also wasn't stoked on driving 24 driving hours. And that's if you don't stop to deal with toddlers.
You were saying that if you thought you had to make stops and do everything, you legit were going to have to break it into 3 days
It's
of
3 days.
driving.
Yeah, it would have to be 3 days.
That's brutal.
With a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old.
Yeah.
So we decided we were going to just gamble. Just gamble. And you know what? It worked out.
Yep.
The flights were actually not that bad. We made all of our connections. All of our crap got there on time. Everything was really smooth. So we're very grateful. And I'm sure the flight back will be much better. Because this time we had to get on 3 flights to get here. And this next one is just 2 flights. Nice and easy. No crazy layovers. Our car's waiting for us at the airport. So
yeah,
it was better than expected. That was really the only thing that you don't know necessarily because you weren't there for that part of my week update.
Right, I physically wasn't there for that part of it.
Yeah, but then when you land, we had to drive 4 hours. We had to get a rental car and drive 4 hours after being on the plane for hours and hours and hours, 3 planes. We finally made it here by dinner. And, we've got a few more days left. You leave tomorrow.
Yeah, we leave tomorrow.
And so, but it's been fun. We've done a lot of really fun stuff up here. The kids, it's all about the kids when we come up here.
I gotta say, I've had a lot of fun uniting the Stapleton and Shaw kids together because, how to put this? Our children, I feel, are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
They're wild, they're rambunctious, they're children.
Yeah.
But for some reason, our brother and sister-in-law, their children are like super well, I mean, like they're kids and they're still active, but they're like super well behaved. They tend to, seem polite and courteous. And I feel like my children are like children of the corn. Like, sure. Turn your back and they're plotting your demise.
Yes. I certainly agree with that. And it has been fun because, Emmy's a she's a hellion.
Yeah.
And I love her for it, and I wouldn't have her any other way. And Charlie and Jackson the same way. You wouldn't want to ever have them any different. It is funny, though, because you're right, our brother and sister-in-law, they're just good kids. I mean,
good kids.
Not that our kids aren't good kids. They're just different kids.
It's just different, yeah.
They're just like, they like want to read a lot.
Right.
And like...
I'm like, you are going to read. If I have to count to 3, you're reading, or you're getting in timeout. You know, something like that.
Yeah. Reading is timeout.
Right.
But yeah, so it has been fun to see those kids interact, and Jackson and Emmy they're so cute. Jackson's so sweet with Emmy and with all the little kids.
This morning, Jackson was pushing Emmy on this little tricycle outside and like taking her for like little tours around the front yard, which has been fun. I also have to say, I have loved being able to hold Lando, because I'd only previously seen a single photo of him, and it was literally like maybe 4 days after he was born.
Yeah.
Because I'm not on the family group text, because our family abuses group text privileges, and so I asked to be removed.
Yep.
Yep. And so, like, Lando is, like, so super easy. I just play with him and make noises and whatnot, and he's just he's just a perfect, like, little 9-month-old little baby boy. He's good. He sleeps well. He's happy almost all the time. He loves his mom. There's no doubt about it. That's his go-to, which is fine. You can break him of that, though.
Eventually.
You can train that out of him.
We will try. Right now, it makes it easy on me that he's a mom.
Well, there's some of that, yes.
Because I can handle Emmy. I can handle Emmy, and Lando frustrates me, and I frustrate him, apparently. So, it works out. Yep.
Well, I'm trying to think what else you don't know about my week. So, we drove, and in past drives here, it's taken us about 14 hours with the kids, because, you know, stops and bathroom breaks and this and that. And also, Jackson gets really car sick. And we've had some really bad incidents where we were not prepared, or we forgot, or we started him delayed. And because of that, he got sick, and then we're cleaning up vomit in the car and just whatnot. But this time, since they've gotten a little older, we gave him the medicine he needed before we even left the garage.
Yeah.
But they just played on their tablets and kept their headphones in. I mean, there was some whining and, you know, the obligatory, you know, handing them snacks and this and that. But this time we were able to actually just drive and stop for gas and make bathroom breaks at those stops. And we did make one extra, like, rest stop somewhere, but it was a real quick kind of trip. So we minimized downtime there. And we actually got here in 13 hours. We shaved a whole hour off, which only is about half an hour slower than you could normally do as an adult.
Yeah.
But the only reason for that was, I took a little bit longer of a stop in Miles City because I needed some food, and it had been like 6 hours since I'd eaten anything. And then there was construction around the Yellowstone National Park area, which, for me, I hate making the drive up here in the winter.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I hate it. Like, there's nothing pretty about it. It's awful. But during the summertime, we get to drive up through Ashton, Idaho, and Island Park, and West Yellowstone, and then kind of skirt around Yellowstone National Park up into Bozeman, Montana. And that is the most beautiful part of the trip. It only lasts maybe about 3.5 hours.
Right.
But, like, that's pure bliss. Like, the boys didn't even want to look up. They just want to look at their tablets. Brita was kind of falling asleep. I just put in the Darkest Timeline podcast, a community podcast, in my ears, and was listening to that and just laughing while, like, watching the scenery around me.
Right.
It was, like, a perfect 3.5 hours of just, like, even though I was surrounded by people in the car, I felt like I was all alone by myself.
Yeah. That's nice.
Which you don't get a lot when we're up here and there's 17 people in a house.
No.
Yeah. The other thing, Super Friends, is obviously I'm taking the week off of streaming because there's no way to do that on the internet up here. So I will be returning to Twitch next week, which is technically really for me, like, 2 days from now when I'm home. And then I've started playing The Last of Us Part 2, Matt.
Oh, yes.
And I think I am maybe 10 minutes behind you on where you're at on your gameplay now.
Yes, you caught up.
I fully intended, because usually when I come up here and we're here for a little over a week, I usually can put in 4 to 5 hours a day gaming, whether that's early morning and evening kind of combined. But this trip, I've really been struggling to sneak in an hour here or there or a little bit more. I think my timer says I've been playing for about 15 hours total. So I think I've gotten about an hour and a half every day. I kind of did the math.
Yeah.
And I'm taking my time because I like to stealth kill and hold on to my resources until I get stuck in a place where like I have to go Rambo and firefight it out. But so far, I'm about 15 hours in. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to tell the Super Friends where I'm at. But I'm about 10 minutes behind you, and so far, I'm loving this story.
It's awesome.
It feels like I'm back in the first one, even though it's not the first one, and the story has, continued to move forward.
Yep.
But the world feels right. I feel like I'm at home in it, and I'm loving the stealth aspect. This is the only game I can think of in recent memory that I get that kind of I play it stealthy.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it. So I'm a little worried though when I go back. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm not gonna stream. Like I'm not gonna start this game on stream in the middle of it.
Right.
So I'll go back to what I was streaming before. So I'm gonna have to start playing this during lunch breaks and maybe getting up a little early in the morning, and then on the weekends trying to put in some heavy play time.
Yep.
When the kids are down.
Right.
But let's see here. Other than that, I'm just watching a little more Community, kind of working my way through it.
Yep.
There's been a lot of stuff that I've wanted to do this week.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do... It's like, you just get knocked out of your routine. And that's expected when you're having a family trip like this. I mean, I've been watching 4 to 5 Supernatural episodes a day. And since I've gotten here, I've watched like 40 minutes of one in like 5-minute chunks when my kids aren't freaking out.
Right.
At night, if I'm lucky. And so I haven't been able to watch, hardly anything.
Well, we all also brought our Switches so we could play Animal Crossing together.
I haven't done anything, man.
I downloaded Overcooked because I thought that'd be fun to try as a family, which we may try today.
Yeah, we could do that today.
But here it is. This is the 8th day we've been here. I really haven't touched my Switch at all.
Yep. I played it for a few minutes, and then one of the kids was peeking over my shoulder, and I don't like it when they do that, so I turned it off.
Yep. Yep. So it's kind of weird. Like, it's been this week of, like, expectations. Like, we were looking at all the stuff we brought with us. We brought all these Nerf guns so the kids could have these Nerf gun battles.
Yeah.
Haven't touched them. They're still sitting up there, and I was like, dang it, we used good trunk space for that stuff.
Well, they've just been, it's been fun. The kids go out and they just want to be outside and play in the pools. And they have, they really went all out with these really fun pools for the kids that blow up and spray stuff. And
yeah, that's true.
Inflatable this and toys and games. And so they're just having a great time. And when it's hot and there's so many people, you just want to sit down and not do anything. And for me, that includes, I don't even want to watch a movie. I don't want to do anything. I'm just fine sitting around and chatting because we don't get together that often anymore with all of our kids and us being literally, scattered from north to south to west all over the country. It's just, it's tough. We're in 4 states.
At the end of the day yesterday, which yesterday for us when we recorded was literally the 4th of July, I was so tired from A, being outside in the hot sun, B, being over the smoker and doing the ribs for so long, and then, helping assist with the other ribs that were being done in the oven to try to make sure we kind of timed all the cooking right. I was just so tired, so hot. I smelled like smoke, and then all the fireworks smoke. I came in, I took a cold shower, I cleaned up, and I put pajamas on, and then I literally came upstairs to kind of see what everyone was doing. I think I talked with everyone for maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Right. And
then people said, let's play Mario Kart and this and that. I literally just came downstairs, lay down in the bed, and went to sleep. I was just so spent. I was like, it was a great day. It was a fun day with family and fireworks and everything. But I was just I was done.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of that kind of going on, which is good.
Yeah, it's great.
Now we have had talks though about if the Stapletons and the Shaws can potentially maybe relocate somewhere a little closer to one another.
We have.
Hopefully
someday.
Hopefully someday. It might not be tomorrow.
It won't be tomorrow. I tell you right now, it won't be. It won't be in the next year. I can't say no.
Right.
But, I can move whenever I want, I guess. But Yeah, we're happy where we are, but we also, we'd like to live
other places.
Yeah. I think
Yep.
It's a hard thing to do, move, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
It's fun to at least start looking down the road at potential options of things you could see yourself doing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think, Matt, we should probably look down the road potentially to see what's in Rebel Intelligence. But in order to do that, we got to kill some Bothans.
Yes.
I think this week we need to strap the Bothans to some fireworks.
Oh, good.
Maybe some firecrackers, because we want to, use the firecrackers to get the intelligence out of them.
Okay.
And then send them up into the, the stratosphere and
love it.
Pop them. Red,
I'm
white,
into
and blue.
it.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt, we are into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
All right. So, that good country of New Zealand.
Oh, yes.
Famous for many great things, including Lord of the Rings, most importantly, at least
Flight of the
for me.
Conchords.
Flight of the Conchords,
Yeah.
Why not? So, also famous now for being so good at keeping that dang COVID under control.
Yeah, they're doing it.
They're doing it. They got only a handful of cases, at least that's what it says recently. And Variety is reporting that they're going to start letting TV shows, movie productions begin, including the Lord of the Rings show for Amazon Prime and Netflix's Cowboy Bebop. And those are to start, I believe it's, let's see, almost immediately. They're all told there's going to be 206 cast and crew members and 35 family members over the next 6 months. So they're limiting it.
Okay.
They're saying there's only a certain amount, but here are the shows that can either resume production or begin. And it's begin production for Lord of the Rings. As much as I wish that they were secret filming it.
Right.
And they're like, oh man, it's going to be out in December. We're like, oh my gosh. But hey, we're getting kind of like we've had a couple of these updates, right?
Yep.
Things like in London, they're letting, there's a couple movies like Jurassic World 3, which,
Yep.
and then now we're getting some more news in New Zealand that some shows and some movies are allowed to begin production again. So it's an exciting time.
I think we're going to see more of that for shooting locations that are not in the United States.
Yeah.
Because there's other countries that have been able to manage the COVID situation in their countries differently, better.
Right.
Circumstances are just different. However, because our situation here in the U.S. is bad, I think we're still going to see long delays on a lot of shows and movies that are being filmed. And then the other side I start to worry about is even if we start seeing places like New Zealand open up, what's going to be the impact of the rising numbers in the U.S.? Will actors, directors, producers, the crew actually be able to leave the U.S. and travel to some of these locations?
Yeah, I'm sure that they're going to have, depending on the country, they're going to have pretty specific parameters they're going to have to meet before they come. I don't know. I would like to know what New Zealand's saying. 206 cast and crew is quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that work on movies and shows, obviously, and they're going to try and keep as bare bones as possible to limit exposure or potential exposure to anyone. But I'm sure they're going to have very specific parameters they're going to have to meet. You're going to get tested, then you're going to have to literally self-isolate for, I don't know, whatever they say is appropriate, and then get tested again, and
Sure.
If you're clear, then you go. On probably a special plane, I would imagine, with only other cast and crew that have also been okay. So, it's a wild world, but we're trying to make it go round still. We halted for a while.
We did.
And we got, I think they're at a point where they're either desperate for money or we're desperate for entertainment. So
little bit of both. Little bit of
both.
I will say, the selfish side of me is yes, I want to see the Lord of the Rings production go forward, but also it's things that got to be safe, and we don't want to be putting people at risk. The more risk we take on as a society, the more things get delayed, the more people are impacted.
Right.
that happens, and there's the negative side of that. But from the podcast perspective, more news for us
good to
is
have
good,
stuff
good
to
news.
talk about.
Right.
Good to have stuff to talk
Right.
about and topics to discuss. So
Yep.
Yeah.
So Matt, before I left on vacation, before I came up here, I did a stream where I was building Legos with the boys for Father's Day.
Right.
And lately, I've kind of been getting into more of a Lego resurgence, this Lego kind of kick, because it's something I can do with the boys, and we can stream and have a fun time. I've got this idea for doing like a stop motion animation where like we'll build a Lego, but we'll put in one piece at a time, and we can still stream it live, but I'll have a camera above it, and I'll click a little button remotely and take a photo, and then I can assemble all those and do a time-lapse video to put on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of looking into this Lego stuff, but now I saw something that was really cool. Lego is producing basically kind of like art, kind of pop culture prints that are made out of the little Lego studs. So like, like just like the little like circular one piece, it's called a stud.
Yes.
They're being used to create art that's buildable, that you can build yourself, and it's got things like Andy, kind of like the pop art of Andy Warhol. And so like they've got one for like the Beatles. There's one that's Iron Man. They've got a couple Star Wars, so you can do like Darth Maul, I think Emperor Palpatine, and Darth Vader.
Oh, that's
awesome. So you can put some of these things together, and I showed it to Brita, and Brita loved it. Like she's like, ooh. And immediately my mind went like, oh, I definitely could do this for like a stream and put it together. And it's kind of a cool thing that Nintendo's doing, or not Nintendo, Lego is doing, excuse me. Because Lego kind of shifted away from some of the traditional builds to do some of that architecture stuff where you could build some of like the famous architecture from different cities and whatnot. And now this is like an art piece that you could literally hang on your wall. Here's the downside, though.
How much is it? It's Lego, so it's
Lego.
Gonna be expensive.
Some of these art kits are going to cost about $120.
Oh man!
So they are going to be pricey. However, they are saying that like you can combine some of them together. It's not Emperor Palpatine. It's Darth Maul.
Oh, wow.
So
I like Darth Maul.
Yeah, it's Kylo Ren, Darth Maul, and Darth Vader. But they're saying like if you put some of them together, you can do like all three of the Star Wars kits, but then it's like $360, right? 120 a pop.
Yeah.
But you can kind of make them into these things, and they're also saying that that the number of pieces for some of the larger ones are actually really, really like we're not talking like 300 pieces. We're talking like pieces like in the couple of thousands because they're all just those little tiny studs.
Oh man, that would take so long. That's like a puzzle. But you know how to do it?
Right. It's
a 1,000-piece puzzle.
A 1,000-piece puzzle with instructions.
With instructions, yeah.
I think I'm going to get one.
I think you should, and then tell me if it's worth it.
Well, I can tell you already now, I think it's already worth it. I'm on board. I'm going to get one of these.
It sounds awesome.
I'm going to build it. I'll probably build it on the stream. But the question is, like, do I want to get Darth Vader? Darth Vader, to me, like, I've seen the Darth Vader one. It's classic. But also the Iron Man one looks really, really good as well. Oh,
nice.
And so it's like, can I convince Brita to let me get two? Maybe. I don't know.
We'll see.
For sure, I know I can probably get the Darth Vader one across.
Yeah.
And then we got to find room to put it up somewhere in the house. Because, Brita's always saying we need more artwork hanging on our walls.
I'm sure that's exactly what she means, too.
That's the way I'm going to interpret it.
That's fair. It's not a wrong way.
So, Super Friends, if you're into Legos, look for these. These things are going to be coming out shortly. I don't remember exactly when they said, but they're going to be rolling around pretty soon. And then some of the ones like the Iron Man one, you can actually like reconfigure so he's like in the Hulkbuster. So like there's a couple different patterns that you could do.
Yeah.
So if you buy the one, you can do something, one of like 3 different things.
Gotcha. Okay.
Depending on your artistic style for Legos.
Nice.
So
Very
anyway,
nice.
What else you got for me, Matt?
Well, you been to a movie recently?
In a theater? No.
No. Well, I've got some news for everyone. Walmart. Did you expect me to start with Walmart?
Well, considering we're talking movie theaters, that's a surprise.
Right?
Yes.
Walmart is going to turn a select number of their stores and parking lots into drive-in movie theaters.
Really?
Correct. Correct. We don't know what movies and what it all means, but they also say that it will be complete with carside popcorn and drink service. And their website just right now says, "See you soon," or "Updates coming. Sign up for our newsletter." I read in one location that it was going to be 160 Walmarts, which is probably just a small fraction because Walmarts are everywhere.
Right, yeah, there's like millions of them.
You can certainly expect to see one of your local Walmarts turning into a drive-in movie theater. I don't know if it's, obviously, like I said, details are super sparse and scarce right now. And I don't know that it's going to be new movies or if it's going to be existing classics. Like, they're kind of rolling movies like Jurassic Park right now and some old classics. I think Jurassic Park, we didn't talk about this on the podcast, but it was back to number 1 like 27 years later, like 2 weeks ago or something. That was pretty cool. So they haven't clarified what that means. If they're going to show movies like Tenet that it's coming out, if they're going to be the big movies, or if they're going to show, probably family movies like the Lego Movie or something like that to kind of get families out.
My guess is re-releases.
I would expect that.
Yeah. But I gotta say, this is a genius idea. We're actually doing something like this for a company party where we're gonna project a movie. We're gonna watch The Princess Bride, and we're gonna watch it on the back of our building in the back parking lot, and we're gonna let all the employees and their families come, and we're using chalk to like mark off parking places so that we can keep social distancing.
Yeah.
And we're gonna hand out like bags of like pre-made snacks or whatever for people, so we don't have to interact with food and that sort of thing, because we need to stay safe, and numbers in our area are rising rapidly.
Right.
But I was thinking about this because the drive-in movie theater really has been on a decline for years and years and years.
Yes.
And it is a fun experience. The only downside for me is like with taking kids, because I love taking kids to something like this. Yeah, it's like the 4th of July. You have to wait till it gets dark to see it.
That's true.
Which means your kids are up late.
Yep.
And if your kids are like my kids, which I'm pretty sure your kids are, but super friends, if your kids are like our kids, we can keep our kids up late, and then they still get up at the normal time the next morning, and then they're just raw because they didn't get enough sleep. So I like this idea. I think it's a great idea. And if Walmart starts doing this, I think there's a market for them to not only make some money, which is, let's be honest,
it's always about money.
What a business is trying to do. They're trying to find ways to make money. But community-wise, it's going to give families an opportunity to get out of their home, to go do something, to still see a movie, and very smartly and socially distanced, be able to have some form of out-of-the-house entertainment, something different to break up the monotony. And I think it's a genius idea. I think a company like Walmart is perfectly positioned to test balloon this with you said 160 stores.
Right.
And if it does well, they could start rolling it out to even more stores and start doing it. And there's no reason why they couldn't continue doing something like this after we're past this pandemic somewhere down the road.
Oh, absolutely. Drive-ins are fun. I went as a kid.
Yeah.
I went as a kid. I remember seeing D2, The Mighty Ducks, followed by, it was like a double feature. Some stupid monkey movie that I fell asleep during because it was dumb. But
okay, like
watched...
Dunstan Checks In or something like
that?
Oh
my gosh, it might have been like Monkey Business?
I was just thinking, like, what was a Disney monkey type movie around that
It could have been.
I don't know.
It could have been. It was back in the early 90s, but it was fun.
I'm going to check that out later and see if Dunstan Checks In was right.
It might have been.
That'd be too funny.
I've definitely seen it. But anyway, I love this idea too. I think it's exciting. I would go.
I'd go too.
I would make that happen, I think.
I'd take the kids on a Friday or a Saturday night.
I'd go next year, though, too. Like, if this was an option that was available to me, that was close by, that was, like, convenient and comfortable, I don't know why I wouldn't do this more often.
I actually have, like, a 9-foot screen that I can put in my backyard.
Yeah.
And I've got a projector. My only problem is trying to, like, find a way to prop it up doesn't really work. But you can buy, like, inflatables now that inflate to make a screen.
Yes.
And they're only, like, $200. I've considered actually buying something like that. And doing like movies in our backyard. We have kind of like this pavilion behind us that we could have the neighborhood people come and sit and do this, because we actually have a neighbor that does this sort of thing, but they do it in their driveway.
Yeah.
And the problem is that their driveway is kind of small, but like in this pavilion area behind us, we could, in theory, do that. And so we've kind of considered it, but it's essentially a smaller scale version of a drive-in.
It's fun stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Something else I loved, and I'm going to say loved, because I don't know that I could say love currently. There was a TV show on MTV in the 90s that was all the rage that I grew up watching. It really was unique at its time, and that's Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead was an animated show about these two buffoon teenagers who were into metal, and they would show them doing little skits and doing things, working at like a McDonald's ripoff, doing, yard work for a neighbor. But it also showed them sitting on the couch watching like metal videos, and then they'd actually show the real video during the cartoon. It was really popular. It even had a movie in like 1996, and then it kind of flamed out. Because honestly, it's geared towards like 12 to 16-year-old boy demographic.
Right.
Which is where I was at the time.
Right.
And so like I really enjoyed it, and then I got a little older and I was just like, I don't care about this anymore.
Right.
Right. Thankfully, I've matured just a tiny bit.
I am so glad.
Just a tiny bit. But the New York Times is now reporting that Beavis and Butthead is going to be rebooted or kind of like reimagined, and Mike Judge, who actually was the creator, founder, artist, like did the original Beavis and Butthead, is on board. He is doing this, and then it's going to be coming to Comedy Central shortly. And I kind of heard this, and I kind of like looked into it a little bit more, and they're going to try to find a way, because Beavis and Butthead really was a show for Gen X. And now they're going to try to find a way to like adapt it and make it for like Gen Z, like this current generation.
Yeah.
And just knowing what I know about Beavis and Butthead, like the teenage angst, all the things, like it fit perfectly in the 90s. Like if you say 1990s, Beavis and Butthead will come to mind because that's there. I don't know how I think this would do. I mean, we know they're rebooting and reimagining everything because we need content. I don't know that I see this being a big thing. I think some people will go back and watch it out of nostalgia, but I think we've just moved on as a society from the point of like watching two idiot cartoon characters watching metal videos on their couch making dumb fart jokes.
Right. Yeah, obviously I was younger, but this was definitely a show that was on the do not watch list in my house. Along with The Simpsons, this was on the popular cartoons that I wanted to watch that mom and dad wouldn't let me watch, but I was very well aware of their that annoying. I mean, now I'm sure if we went back and watched it, we would just die.
Stop it, Beavis.
Yeah. that stuff. I don't know how you adapt this now, because there was a culture in the 90s where it was grunge.
Yeah.
And then it kind of shifted as I got older, the grunge, punk, goth. It kind of all was this darker thing. I'm not a teenager now, so I don't know if those things are really as popular as they were in the 90s. So unless he changes and becomes like a K-pop, like it's a K-pop Beavis and Butthead thing.
Beavis and Butthead K-pop.
Maybe.
Wow.
I think that's what the kids listen to now. Wow, I have no idea what they listen to.
I love the fact you just said,
I don't know.
I think that's what the kids listen to now.
I know. I don't know.
Which means you're no longer...
I'm not a kid.
No.
I'm aware of this. But anyway, I'm with you. This will be interesting. I will look at reviews of this. I don't think I will watch this. I just don't think it's meant for me.
I think, for me, like, there's things that, like, I will go back and I will watch.
Yeah.
Things that interest me. Like, when we talked about, like, Cobra Kai, the spin-off show off of Karate Kid. I loved the Karate Kid so much. I think the Karate Kid is still an amazing film, even though it's an 80s film, and it definitely feels very much
80s.
like an 80s film.
Yeah.
I was okay with watching a reboot or a reimagining or a continuation of something like that. But something like this, I kind of go, there was a time and a place, and
let's leave it. Leave it in the time capsule.
And I've moved on.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I need to. It's kind of like the same thing with Fuller House. I know
I'm all in on Fuller House.
I know a lot of people are and Bree to watch it, but I kind of went, you know what? For me, I got enough Full House as a child.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I need that in my life right now. Not that it's bad, not that it's wrong. It's just for me, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's kind of like Turtles. Like, there's going to be like a new animated Turtles movie. It's being rebooted again, whatever. I just kind of look at it and go, for me, I just, you know, I'm good.
Turtles.
I don't need it. Now, once my kids get into it, which I know eventually probably will happen, boys are boys, then maybe I'll see more of it. Kind of like DuckTales.
Right.
Like, this is a similar vein. I watched the mess out of the original DuckTales. Didn't really have any super big interest in watching the new one. My boys watch it, and so I've watched a whole bunch of the new series with them, and I really enjoy it. Am I going to watch it on my own? No.
Right.
Will I watch it with my boys? Absolutely.
Yep.
So, anyway, that is all that I had for Rebel Intelligence.
Yep.
But the 4th of July, it's kind of a lighter week, right?
It is.
I'm assuming you're out as
I'm
well.
out.
Nice. So last week, Matt, we did the movie club. We did Independence Day, which was a lot of fun going back.
Yeah, that was.
And rewatching. And then we asked the Super Friends a question about summer blockbuster movies so we could start compiling a list. And here's the thing. I really wasn't taking into effect the fact we were going to be having the podcast releasing the day before and the weekend and all the celebration and the things going on. And so we're recording earlier than we normally do because I'm traveling tomorrow.
Yep.
So we don't have any answers because I wasn't able to get the question of the week out. So I think we're going to have to punt that question.
Yeah.
And get Super Friends to help us out, assemble a list of blockbuster summer movies, here next week or within the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
Send in your recommendations. We'll compile a list. Maybe we'll get a list of summer blockbuster movies, and then we'll just have a discussion where we talk about the 20 most submitted blockbuster movies or something.
Yeah, I'm in.
Something different. So, Super Friends, we do apologize for that. We're gonna kind of skip past that this week. So, Matt, I came across... You know what? Before we even go that far, because what would we be without the Super Friends?
We would be nothing.
We would be nothing without
We would be
Super
two
Friends.
losers in a basement in our in-laws' house, talking to each other.
That is specifically very specific.
That's exactly what we would be. Actually, we're still that.
Yes,
but
we
we're
are.
also more because of you, the listeners, the Super Friends. Our hearts go out to you this day for making us more than just two losers, middle-aged, sitting downstairs in the basement of our in-laws' house. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for listening and liking and subscribing and commenting and rating and interacting. And sorry we didn't get the question of the week out. We make mistakes too, and we're sorry for that. So this week, what you can do, in addition to all the things you always do, is forgive us and forgive someone else.
Ooh, yeah.
Let's let go of some anger that you have, some bitter frustrations.
I feel like this has increased, this whole, go rate us, podcast reviews thing. I feel like it's also transitioned lately into more of the final moments of the Jerry Springer show, where it's the be kind to each other,
yes,
and to others type of moments. The little life lessons learned.
Yes, and sometimes it's silly, but we're feeling a heartfeltness right now.
Heartfeltness.
Yeah.
Yes.
So forgive and forget and let go, but learn from it. But anyway, I'm going to stop because I've forgotten my psychology degree and I don't know what forgiveness is anymore. But do that.
Forgiveness from your heartness.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Super Friends. Oh, okay. Now, Matt, I read a great article earlier this morning, and it was with Damon Lindelof, who was the showrunner from the TV show Lost.
Yes.
Now, I really loved Lost.
Yep.
And it's one of those shows where when I tell people who haven't watched it, I say, I highly recommend this show. It's really good. It's kind of about mysteries, and the show is meant to drop a bunch of hints and clues to keep you coming back week after week after week.
Yeah.
Which is a different experience if you watch it now new, because you're going to stream and you're going to binge it.
Yeah, immediately you can find out.
Right, so you're going to get through this. You're not going to have the water cooler moments. But admittedly, this show when it was on was the largest thing. Everyone talked about it.
Big deal.
Big deal. But Damon Lindelof has recently come out and said that when him and Carlton Cuse, who ended up becoming like executive producer on the show, when they first were getting the show going, they only intended the show to be 3 seasons long. They had these ideas for like, what's in the hatch and what do the numbers mean and who's the real Jack, who's the real Sawyer and, how did, this happen and all these kind of ideas, that they only intended it to go about 3 seasons because those were the stories they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And they felt like, that they could do it well.
Yep.
And ABC said, no, you got to be kidding. We're going to run this thing forever because it's hard to get people invested. You got to remember this show came out like around 2006-ish, 2005, 2006 when it started.
Right around there, yeah.
It's hard to get people to invest into a new show, and to get this many people watching it, you want to keep as many eyeballs on your channel that you can. So ABC literally was saying like, no, we're going to run this as long as we possibly can. There's no end in sight. And Lindelof and Cuse ended up putting their feet down after the 2nd season, saying like, no, we're going to end this thing. We're going to end this on our terms. We're going to end it early. And eventually, somewhere during the 3rd season, ABC executives kind of started to get the idea of what they were saying. Not that they were saying that they were putting out bad content, because they weren't. They were working really hard to put good content out.
Yeah.
But they're just saying, like, the premise of, like, having mysteries is eventually you gotta start...
You gotta wrap it up.
You gotta wrap it up. You gotta resolve some of those things.
Give us what we need.
Yes.
Resolution. Yeah.
And so the executives at ABC started seeing that, and so they said, okay, fine, we'll agree to end it at 10 seasons.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse laughed at him and said, no, you gotta be joking.
Right.
And they eventually settled on 6 seasons, which is why Lost went legit 6 seasons.
Right.
Because executives came to an agreement and said, boom, here's where it is. However, Lindelof brings up a good point. As a storyteller, he knew he had about 3 really solid seasons before you were going to start getting into this point of diminishing returns.
Yep.
Where it's going to be harder to like make the stories believable and plausible.
Yeah.
And go on. And I will say, and I do tell this to people, when you get towards the last season of Lost, even the last 2 seasons, the story starts getting complicated is not the right word, but maybe more confusing because they're trying to find more ways to jam things in to try to keep people guessing and try to keep the show going without just completely derailing and not making it to the prescribed end of the 6th season.
Right.
And so I have to put that caveat on that show, which is sad to me because it literally was one of my favorite shows of all time, and I have to put a caveat on it when I recommend it now because of the way it ended. So I thought it would be interesting. We've talked about TV shows before that have had bad endings.
Yes.
But I thought it'd be interesting to go down and go through a list of TV shows that should have ended before they did, and a few reasons maybe why they should have ended. And we've kind of compiled a list that we can kind of go through. These are shows that here at the Fortress of Nerditude we would say should have ended earlier than they did. We're not saying that they're bad shows. We're not saying that they had horrible finales. We're not saying that we don't love these shows, because a lot of these shows on this list we really do love, and we love some of the final seasons.
Yep.
But for creative reasons, there could have been a better ending point earlier.
Right. And this is a list that we came up with together.
Yep.
And a list that we consulted the experts of our wives and the internets. So we'll know a lot about some of these, a little bit less about some of these, and we may even disagree with some of these as well. But this is kind of a consensus of some of the shows that probably should have ended before they did. They went on a little too long.
Yeah.
So I'll kick things off with a banger.
Let me hit it right off the bat then.
It's going to be a hot take, y'all. I don't think it's that hot of a take, but maybe it is. The Office.
Mm-hmm.
After season 6, Steve Carell
7.
left. Was it 7?
It was 7.
7. And there was a stretch where they were kind of going through the different managers, and Will Ferrell was there for a little while, and they were trying to figure out who was going to take over from Michael Scott. And long story short, for me, this went on 2 seasons too long.
Yeah.
Season 8 and season 9. Not that I don't love parts of season 9, because season 9 was a redemption for me from season 8. Season 8 for me is bad. I don't like season 8.
You don't like Robert California.
No, I hate him. I don't really love the Florida thing and the Saber takeover. I don't really like a lot of that. So even into season 7, when that started to happen, it felt different. And I think that this is an interesting one, because The Office is perhaps the most popular show in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
From just a serialized sitcom standpoint, and it is streamed like a mofo still.
Yes.
I mean, kids.
Yes.
Like kids. I work with teenagers at church, and they watch it all the time. I'm like, no, this didn't even come out till I was like past high school, and you guys are...
Which is funny to me, because I mean...
Yeah, it's wild.
It's situational comedy, and it's funny. There's so much humor in The Office that can be understood by anyone. But it was funnier for those of us that worked in office environments, because these are characters and tropes that we actually see in our day-to-day. So, like, looking back, and I've rewatched this show a number of times on Netflix.
Yeah.
I actually like the Robert California character because I've known people like that.
Sure.
I'm working for a company that's been bought twice in the last 18 months. We were bought by a larger automation company, and then that automation company was bought by a Japanese company, Hitachi.
Okay.
And so I have seen culture change. I have seen new initiatives. I've seen these things, like the whole Sabre going to Florida trying to launch a product. Right. So this strikes home and resonates with me from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, but is it funny?
But it's not always the best comedy that show has produced.
Right.
And I will say that The Office, for me, is this amazing ensemble comedy, but the linchpin always was Steve Carell's character of Michael Scott. And when he left to go join his fiancée to move to Colorado, the emotional episode that should have been the final send-off. Maybe we see one episode or the tag at the end of the episode of The Office trying to, like, just moving on now that he's gone. So we know that these people are still going to have to move on in their lives. But that would have been a very natural place to end The Office. I think there's great stuff that came after it here and there, but it wasn't the same.
Agreed.
The show changed. And so I'm with you. I think The Office should have ended kind of that midway through season 7 when Steve Carell left.
Yep.
So I've got one for you here that I think makes a lot of sense for kind of the same reason. The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory ran, 11 seasons, 12 seasons?
80?
I got to a point somewhere at maybe season 6 or 7 when I realized that the tone of the show had changed enough that it wasn't what it was when it started.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone necessarily, there was no major characters that departed, but you went from these 4 nerds that worked at Caltech, and the hot girl that lives in the apartment across the hallway. From that being the dynamic to one of the nerds marries the hot girl, and then two of the other nerds ends up getting married, and then kids enter the picture for one of the couples.
Oh,
and the problem is when you have a huge, and CBS had a huge hit on their hands, they didn't want to end it. It gets to the point when you start hearing reports like actors are being offered, $2 to $3 million per episode, and that's why they continue to say yes, because they know they have a huge hit on their hands and that they can make a lot more than when the show was in its infancy. And for me, the comedy just seemed to run dry. It used to be a show that was supposed to be about these 4 really smart nerds that the show was kind of dumbed down a little bit for the general audience to feel smart and kind of get in on a lot of the jokes and the inside stuff, to then eventually, like, they even toned down how smart and intellectual the characters were, and it just became a situational comedy about dealing with kids and having fights and, working through relationship issue type stuff, to the point where by the end, it nowhere near, like, certain set themes and elements seemed familiar, but it was definitely not the same show. I think they could have ended that show after about 6 or 7 seasons and called it good.
Yeah, I agree. I watched a couple of seasons of the show. Just it was so popular.
Yeah.
And usually I don't watch the shows just because they're popular, but this one was of special interest because of what my interests are, and I wanted to see how they portrayed. I'm not smart. I'm a simple man. I'm not dumb either, but I don't typically watch these types of sitcoms, meaning like a single cam or or multicam. I mean,
multicam. Yep.
I don't watch those very often, like never, except for How I Met Your Mother is pretty much the exception to that rule of shows that I love. That's a multicam. So I don't usually watch these in general, but Big Bang Theory, I agree with you that I liked the first few seasons. I didn't ever really love it because I didn't feel like it accurately portrayed my interest. I feel like it was more making fun of what I liked.
Yeah.
At times, or like...
I know what you mean.
When I think of, like, things that are interesting that I loved, when you look at episodes of, like, The Big Bang Theory and they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, it's like to make fun of the fact that Dungeons and Dragons is nerdy and stupid.
Right.
Then you shift to a show like Community where they show what Dungeons and Dragons really is, and that's the episode.
Well, and like the comparison is like Community uses it to like help talk about like working through someone's issues and mental health.
Yeah.
Whereas The Big Bang Theory is just trying.
That's the joke.
Yeah, they're trying to use that as the joke just to make you feel dumb for playing it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it fell off for me when it started. When the nerdiness became the joke.
Yeah.
More than the story.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, all right, this has jumped the shark for me and I'm out.
Yeah.
So I agree. The next show is How I Met Your Mother.
Ooh.
And I just talked about this as being one of the shows I actually love. And we also talked about this show on the worst endings.
Yes.
Because for me, this is single-handedly the worst ending for a TV show in history. For me. I'm sure there are many who disagree. But I think we can all agree that the final season was not great.
Well, they spent the whole season.
It was like 3 days long, right?
It
was a weekend.
In a 3-day weekend period, and they really confined almost the entire cast to a single set.
Yeah, it was like that hotel, pretty much the whole time.
Yes.
And it lost what we loved about it.
Yep.
We liked being at McLaren's, and that's what it was.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
You don't see the interaction between Ted and Marshall.
No.
At all.
Mm-mm.
And, they were best friends.
Because he's trying to get there or something,
Yeah, he's trying to get there.
Right.
He's trying to make it across country for the wedding. I agree. That's a show that if they would have ended it the season before, maybe even 2 seasons before, they would have been fine. Once again, the show went on long enough that while I still love that show, and it is literally hysterical to me, there kind of became a point when it started to change enough that they started like doing even wackier combinations and finding ways to split certain characters off to have a story arc here and there with other people.
Yeah.
That I kind of went, you're starting to stray too far from your base of what your premise is.
Yeah.
And it was like, at that point, you're like, okay, we just need to figure out who the dang mother is.
Yep.
Because it's been long enough.
Yep.
I agree. How I Met Your Mother could have ended earlier.
Yeah, even 2 seasons, I think you're right.
2 seasons, that could have been fine.
Give us the mom, give us an episode with the mom, and then kill it. I don't need a lot with the mom. Just kill it. Don't kill her. Just kill it.
Okay, so the next one we had on our list was Scrubs.
Yeah.
Scrubs was a very huge, once again, a huge comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And it ran, gosh, what, 8 good seasons, most people would say.
Right.
And then it went a 9th season. And in the 9th season, they had lost some of the major characters. And they tried to basically take it from the hospital to a med school to try to do a kind of a soft reboot.
Yeah.
And they brought in a whole bunch of new people to try to, say, hey, can we continue this on?
Mm-hmm.
Because removing characters and putting in new characters is actually fairly common in, the police, attorney, medical kind of procedurals. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that they were trying to do that with this show, with a comedy, and no one watched that 9th season.
No.
And the 9th season killed the show, and then they finally decided to pull the plug on it. Once again, I think this is an example of, if your major stars are leaving and they've been the bread and butter for you,
right,
and they're not going to re-sign a contract, if you do not have an amazing, amazing idea that can pass on and live without the main star,
mm-hmm.
kind of like how Doctor Who does it, right?
Right.
So that you can rotate a new doctor in and keep the show running. If you don't have something like that, you really need to consider whether or not you should go on with the show, because you invest time and money on it, and if it just falls apart like Scrubs did, what's the point?
Agreed. I've heard Scrubs 1,000 times, even in TV shows that talk about things that went on too long. Scrubs is typically mentioned.
Right.
So yeah, Scrubs is a tough one. Charles, who we had on the podcast a few weeks ago, he introduced me to Scrubs, and we watched quite a bit of it together. I never made it as long. I didn't make it to season 9, but I've heard it's rough. Yeah, when you lose Zach Braff, he's the show.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, it's kind of like the Once Upon a Time, right?
Yeah, Once Upon a Time. That's the next one that we've got on this list.
It's kind of the same thing as Scrubs.
Yeah.
They tried to do a whole nother season with basically getting rid of 6 of their 7 main characters or something, and then doing a soft reboot.
Yep.
Rita watched that show, and I remember I came in at one point, and I looked and I said, well, wait a minute, where's this person? She said, oh, this is the last season when they tried to kind of do a soft reboot. My opinion, I'm going to say emphatically, is if you're trying to soft reboot a show while it's still current, that should be a clear indicator that you need to not do that and just move on and find something else.
Right, yeah, and Once Upon a Time was interesting because I did like it a lot, and I watched the first 3 seasons. Being a fan of kind of the fairy tales of it and how it ties in with some of the Disney characters that we all know and love, it was interesting, and I enjoyed it. But they started to introduce new characters, and I could tell they were shifting away from what it was by season 3.
Yeah.
They were already starting to introduce a bunch of new characters that I didn't like, and didn't care for, and didn't like the way that they were portraying them. And it felt like we had a really good story, and then they added a bunch of weird stuff to try and give us more because this story was going to wrap up. You know, like Snow White was kind of the whole thing, her deal, and then that started to maybe begin to tie up, so they had to introduce Captain Hook and move on. And I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Why are we doing
How
this?
does Captain Hook and
Keep
Mulan
the show.
interact? Yeah.
That's when it just became too much. So for me, instead of just saying the last season, I'd say kill it at 3.
Okay.
I would like to have seen that wrap up.
The story would have been tighter.
Could have been tighter, Lost. Just keep it tight because it's a great story. It's a really great idea, but keep it tight. It got too loose. Here's a good one, which we might get some backlash for. My sister would probably have my neck for saying 24.
No,
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's incredible.
It's a great
show. You can
show.
sit down and here's the deal with 24. I got into it probably after the first 3 or 4 seasons had aired.
Okay.
My family watched it and I was just not interested. I was a teenager. I was out with my friends. I couldn't have cared less.
Sure.
Really about television in general at that stage. And we bought them on DVD.
Okay.
And that is how I was introduced to it. So I was able to binge just
Did
the
you
whole
Did you
season.
Did you ever try to do the binging 24 in a 24-hour period?
No, I never tried that. I never tried it. I kind of wanted to.
I did that. I did
But
that
I
once
didn't.
with the first.
You did?
So I'd seen the first season and then I rewatched it with someone else, and we did it in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, no commercials when we were watching on DVD.
Yep.
So an hour-long episode now becomes like 42 minutes.
Yep.
And so we did it in less than 24 hours. It was a little rough towards the end, though. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
But this is a great concept, an incredible show.
Yeah.
The first 3 seasons, I was just all in. I mean, so many cool different things. And then you start to go, well, this is pretty formulaic now.
Yeah.
I know what's going to happen, and they might throw like a little curve.
They did throw lots of curves to like keep you always kind of wondering what's going on, and they did a great job of like building tension so that they end on a cliffhanger. Here's the problem though. At some point you go, all right, we've seen this character do this a bunch.
Yeah.
We get that some people work in high pressure environments,
Mm-hmm.
but like I've known people that have worked in law enforcement, firefighters. What gets portrayed on TV and the drama is drama for TV.
Yeah.
Some of those things, yes, will happen, but not back to back every hour over the course of an entire day.
Yeah.
Season
Right.
after season
Right.
after season. 24 didn't end up having a TV movie.
It did. Yeah.
And then didn't they try to like
They did another
reboot?
one or something like
Yeah.
that too. They tried to do a lot with it. Because it is such a great concept. And we're not crapping on the concept. We both like the show.
We both loved it.
I mean, there's some
love the
parts
show,
where
yeah.
my jaw dropped. I'm like, that was bad A. Like,
Yeah.
what he just did, that was
Yep.
awesome. You know, fake your own, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
that between seasons 3 and 4, I'm just like, this is cool.
I think
And then it
I think
kinda
when he
loses
stopped
it.
being kind of like the leader of the CTU team,
Yeah.
when he transitioned into like I don't know what he was like an advisor to the president or advisor to the Secretary of Defense or whatever. When he moved on there, I was done. It's similar to like the Jack Ryan novels. Like I love the Jack Ryan novels when he was an analyst that gets forced into field work. But once he becomes like vice president and president in some of the books,
Yeah.
that's always where I'm like, yeah, I don't care anymore because now it's all about like the political maneuverings. I enjoyed it when he was just this CIA analyst that gets put on a mission because they need an analyst on this mission, and the next thing you know, he's got a gun shoved into his hand and he's forced to be in an unusual circumstance.
Yep.
And now it's like, oh, he's president and he's got to sign this bill. Like I could care less about that.
Yep, agreed.
My next one, and this one's hard for me
You love this.
because I loved this show, Smallville.
Yeah.
Smallville, which was back on the CW. Or the WB,
Yeah, WB
at
back
the time.
then, I think. Yeah.
Smallville was this great idea of let's take Superman, but let's show him when he's Clark Kent as a teenager, when he's discovering his powers, when he's figuring out how to do things. And it was a little formulaic at first. There was some Monster of the Week stuff, but they started getting into some great story arcs. But the premise of the show, the showrunners always said was no flights, no tights. That they were not going to show him being actually Superman and flying. The problem is in every telling of Superman, once Clark Kent leaves home, he leaves Kansas, and he goes and travels to Metropolis, that's when he transitions into Superman. This show starts when he's just in high school. It goes 4 seasons, maybe 5 seasons that kind of, spanned a little bit of him in high school. Then he goes off to Metropolis and is kind of in college and then is becoming the reporter that he's going to be. The show ran for 10 seasons, and finally in the 10th season, like he's learned all his powers.
Yeah.
Except for flying. In the final episode of the 10th season, we see him in the blue spandex, and he then learns to fly. And for me, I kind of looked and said, okay, I get the whole concept, no flights, no tights. I was on board with that because they were trying to tell the story of a young Clark Kent, kind of this, journey, like a boy's transition from boyhood into manhood, coming of age tale.
Yeah.
But that coming of age tale then continued on and on and on. I honestly think that they should have run this thing 4 or 5 seasons, get him to Metropolis, have him figure out how to fly, show him in his Superman outfit,
Right.
and end it.
Yep.
Don't go on another 5 seasons. Don't bring in some of these big characters from the Superman lore, but yet he still doesn't have the full capabilities to fight it. I love the show, but creatively, I think they could have ended after like 5 seasons.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Instead of going 10
That's
seasons.
so many. I watched a couple episodes here and there. It was very popular.
Yep.
But I never was into Superman. I didn't really get into any superheroes until later. And I don't even know that I would consider myself into it now as much as I just enjoy it. Other than Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the exception. I love him. Always have loved him. And that is the end of the story there. Okay, this next one is going to hurt a lot of you. And it hurts us.
It hurts me.
But this is something that I brought up, independent of what we found on the internet too, is Community.
Yeah.
And you know that we have sung its praises on this podcast. Every week we talk about Community.
Yep.
I legit think every week this show is brought up in some respect, and it's always in a positive light.
Yep.
And we still are planning on having some special Community episodes coming up. But this is a show that in season 3, or I guess it's beginning of season 4, we'll say.
Yeah.
Between seasons 3 and 4, Dan Harmon was fired.
Yep. Sure.
And Chris McKenna went with him, who was kind of his right-hand man.
Yep.
And we were left with season 4, which was a couple of the writers that were trying to do their best with what they had. And we're not here to crap on the writers. It's not their fault. But when you lose the heart and soul of the show, who is Dan Harmon and Chris McKenna, you lose it.
Yep. And
that was a big hit. But the cast was all still there, and it got picked up for 5th season. And Dan Harmon, the man, was coming back.
Yeah, NBC brought him back because they realized
this is not what pictures. Yeah, and we all yelled at him as Community fans, like, this is wrong.
Yeah,
this isn't what our show is. And anyway, and then in the 5th season we start to lose people. We lose between seasons 4 and 5. We lose Pierce.
Yeah, we lose Chevy Chase, and then Donald
halfway
Glover.
Through you lose Donald Glover.
Yep.
And for me though, season 5 is still top tier Community. Yeah. We still have great stuff because the introduction of Buzz Hickey, he is still, like, I consider him like God tier of Community. So his interactions with the group, I mean, he's a great character. He was one of those ones where you talked about, if you lose somebody, you better have someone good to fill in.
Right.
And for me, that character fit in and helped make sense of Jeff becoming a teacher and having like a teacher friend who was cynical and funny,
right, and
brought in that old perspective that Pierce had, but from like a much smarter teacher, but just silly guy. And then this is where things get really rough, is when NBC cancels the show.
Yes.
Everybody wants it back.
Yahoo Screen,
Yahoo Screen says, okay, we're gonna bet on this horse, which was a terrible idea for them.
Business-wise, yeah, because they went bankrupt.
We're grateful for it, but season 6, for me, this is where I feel like the show can fit on the list, where I could justify it.
Yeah. And
it's not that it's a bad season, because we were talking about this, a couple of hours ago, where we said season 6 of Community is still better than 90% of television.
True.
It's still better, it's still funnier, it's still smarter, but for me, it wasn't quite Community.
In the theme of where Community's at,
right?
That season stands out as feeling different enough that it doesn't feel homogenous to the rest of the seasons.
Yes, it's not as cohesive.
Yes,
and there's a lot of factors at play. And there's a lot that we could go into and talk about. Because it's Community, we could spend probably 30 minutes just talking about this one show and how it fits. But this is a show where the fans love it so much, if you don't do it exactly right, from not just a writing perspective, but the way that it's shot, the lighting, all of that stuff shifted in season 6. If you watch it, it's a much colder looking show. The episodes, and I get it because it's a streaming platform, you can make it as long as you want. But Community was so good in the 3 acts. 1, 2, 3, and then a tag at the end. And it was perfect. And then you get Yahoo Screen, and it gets a little messy with that, because some of the acts can be a little longer than it, and it doesn't feel as natural as it should have.
Yeah, the pacing was definitely different.
It was weird. There's still some standouts in season 6 that I love and I watch to this day, but it still isn't quite right. And Paget Brewster,
yeah.
She's great. Not quite what Buzz Hickey was for me. Never lived up to that as funny or as important. And then Keith, what's his name? Keith David?
Keith David, yeah.
Also funny, but nowhere near Buzz Hickey or Pierce
Wingman
level.
and Hard Drive.
Yeah.
So here's the question then. If they do a movie, because there's always the possibility they could do 6 seasons in a movie. If they do a movie, do you think we're still going to end up looking at this as being the same thing, like they probably should have ended after 5 and not done the rest?
That's a good question. I don't know until I see it.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and find out.
If they can get Donald Glover back for the movie in some capacity, then I think that it will make everything tie up better.
I'll watch it no matter what.
Of course I will too. I don't care if it's
I agree.
like rated adults only and there's some weird stuff and I'll still find a way to watch it. I can't not. But anyway, so that's a show that's on the list.
Another show I've got on the list, and this is also going to be another one that people are going to go, really? The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I love The Simpsons, but I mean, The Simpsons now has been running for over 30 seasons. These kids are still perpetually the same age, which is actually a really funny kind of meta joke there. But for me, it was one of those things where like I'd watched probably the first 10 or 11 seasons, and then I served a mission for my church and I was busy doing other things, so I wasn't watching television.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I was in college, and I just, I would catch episodes here and there, but honestly, I don't think I've watched Simpsons on any, form of consistency since about the 10th or 11th season.
Yeah.
And now it is on Disney Plus, and I do want to get around and watch it, because I still hear from a lot of people that there's funny episodes and that there's things, and The Simpsons do a real good job of lampooning society and what's going on around in society. But for me, it's one of those things where it's an extremely popular show. It made a lot of money for Fox, so they kept it on the air I mean, come on. We're talking about an animated show that's been running in prime time for 30 plus seasons. I think it's safe to assume that they could have ended earlier. And honestly, almost every fan I talk to says usually about the first 6, 7, 8 seasons were some of the best writing of the entire run of this series.
Right.
So I would say that The Simpsons is a show that probably could have been cut off maybe a decade earlier, at least.
Right. Well, I mean, it was popular.
Yeah.
Really popular. In the early 90s. Like, whoa, this is the show.
Yep.
I don't hear about it at all anymore.
No.
And maybe I don't talk to the right people, but at the time it didn't matter who I talked to. Everybody watched that show.
Yep.
And so I can agree. Having not watched The Simpsons, we've talked about this, right? I got to get back on Disney Plus and I got to watch it. But yeah, that makes total sense. Here's one that I definitely am on board with, and that is The Walking Dead.
Yep.
What a great show. My gosh, hooked me from the moment I watched the first episode. Oh my goodness. Like, one of the greatest.
Yeah.
Love. There's a reason it was the most popular television show ever. I think at a period of time it was the most watched show ever. And AMC, what a hit. What a hit.
I mean, they were doing good things at the time. They had that.
They had Breaking Bad. I
yes.
mean, they were killing it. They were the must-watch TV at the time.
Yep.
And then they weren't. I would say after the first few seasons, things started to get a little bit samey, and the pacing started to slow to a screeching halt at times.
There were some definite issues with that.
The character development was wonky and felt off every once in a while, or far too slow.
But yet you still wanted to watch.
But we still watched it.
Because you never knew what was going to happen in this post-apocalyptic world.
Right. And for me, I like the zombies. I wanted to see more of them. And there was a season where it was 1 to 3 episodes where the zombies were bad. And they were an actual threat.
Right.
Outside of that, it was people, which I get.
Right.
I get it. But remember what the world is. It's post-apocalyptic, and I want to see some zombie killing.
Right.
And some real threats to some of these characters. But anyway, long story short, I stopped after the famous episode where Negan comes and bashes in some skulls.
Yeah.
I was done.
When Glenn dies. That's exactly, Matt, when I stopped as well. Now, I watched the show and I really loved it. But for me, that scene
Yeah.
was so brutal. And we've seen major characters die, but the showrunners and the show writers decided to do something where they were not just going to kill a main character in a way where it was going to be hard to watch. Because we've seen that happen before.
Yeah.
They killed off a main character that everyone universally loved. No one disliked the
From
character
episode
of Glenn.
1.
From the
He's in episode 1.
From the very beginning, Glenn was he was the pizza delivery boy.
He was awesome.
Like, he was a loved character who had a character arc where he grew and became more than what he was before and became a very relied on character.
Yeah.
But they so brutally murdered him on the show that I remember turning to Brita, because she struggled too, and I remember turning to her and I said, I don't know that I want to watch this anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with watching main characters die, but the way they did this just was so visceral and real emotionally, it took me out of the show, and it made me really consider, do I really want to watch something that's this rough?
Right.
Do I really need this in my life right now?
Right. I mean, literal sick to my stomach.
Yes.
Yes. I didn't want to finish the episode.
Yeah.
No,
Which,
I mean,
if you're watching a movie that you know is going to do something like that, that's eliciting a response from you that is very real. And so, from a perspective of a filmmaker doing something to elicit that, they did their job.
Yep.
But I know for a fact that after that happened, the numbers on that show dropped precipitously.
Yep.
People stopped watching, and they were trying to do things to say, come back, this and that.
It's not going to be as brutal.
It's not going to be as brutal.
We made a mistake.
And from what I hear, that people that watched it said that the rest of that season was very, very tame. And that for a while, they really toned down a lot of the violence.
Yeah. Because
they lost so many viewers.
Yep.
And then of course, they tried to do a spin-off show. So I think The Walking Dead is an example where the show didn't change from its premise, but they just took something too far in their storytelling that it alienated their audience, which is almost worse, because
it is.
It's not we let it go on too long and we slowly bled out our viewers. It was, we did something that lost us half our viewership.
And the issue is, stuff like that happens in shows where you feel frustrated that something happens, but the storytelling and the show wasn't good enough for it to overcome that. So for me, that was kind of the last straw. Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of people felt. Like, the show was really good, but it was slowing down and the pacing was bad. The character development was weird, and they were killing off characters that I wish they didn't. And I'm okay with that sometimes, but when it happens too much, too often, I'm like, really? And then that was kind of the last one. I think that's what their problem was the show was slowing down, and then it did something like this, and that was the last straw for people. Yeah. So, anyway.
Another one I had was House.
Oh, I love House.
And I loved House, but this one, once again, it was one of those medical dramas where someone is going to come in. The premise, someone comes in, they've got some sort of mysterious illness, disease, whatever, and how they showcase how House is this brilliant doctor. He's almost like a Sherlock Holmes in the way he can do a differential diagnosis and come up with these weird things and figure out that at the last second, oh, this person doesn't actually have this, he has this, and we're going to kill him if we do this. It was a fun show. It was really smart. It was really entertaining. But at some point, the show just doesn't move on enough. I mean, also the Dr. House is also addicted to drugs. And
it got a little too dark, I think.
Yeah, and it just kind of got to this point where you kind of went, we need something new. We need something to kind of help keep this story, because it just felt like it was spiraling further and further and further into just this, who wants to watch this? This is becoming just depressing.
Yeah, and we lost some of his
med students.
We lost, and when you lose those characters that are iconic for the first few seasons, I didn't like it when we got new ones. I was like, give me back Omar Epps and Olivia Wilde and the Australian dude. And I get that they move on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was one of those ones where we lost him, and I was pretty sad.
Yep.
To a point where I didn't really want to watch, but I did, and I watched deep into the last season. Deep. I still haven't finished it because it just got it changed from this fun, interesting medical show that I really liked, and it was kind of like I said, the monster of the week. But then it got weird character arcs that I didn't like. The darkness and the pill addiction, which I get, but it took us, I think, too deep into it. And then the love with like the hospital administrator, and it's like, okay, quit the show. Let's wrap it up, please. Yeah. So that one went on a little long. I agree. The next one I'm going to do is Glee.
Oh, yeah.
I loved this show when it came out. I love music. I mean, most people do, right? Who do you meet this as I hate music? Nobody.
Not many people know.
Yeah. But this show was a shockingly popular show, I think, on Fox.
Yeah.
I believe
Fox.
This was a Fox show where it was just a bunch of high school kids joining up in a Glee club. We've got cheerleaders and jocks and nerds and everybody, and they all come together and they have this really fun, and it was a smart comedy.
Yeah.
It was a drama, kind of, but it was mostly just like a drama comedy that was smart. It was bright. It was happy. It was...
And it did focus on, like, teenage drama.
Right. Which we all know I'm into the teenage drama. I'm still deep into the teenage drama.
We know.
Give me more Riverdale. But there was a point in this show where the main characters graduate.
Yeah.
And they try to... This is a common problem with shows. They hold on for too long.
Yep.
And they go away to college, but yet we still follow their stories. Because I get it, we as watchers, that's a weird one. We as the
viewers.
The viewers, thank you.
We as the watchers standing outside the window looking in at the people watching the TV.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
We're invested in these characters, but also there is a healthy bit of us that needs to let go and let things move on if you can find the right characters. And I don't think that happened. Kill it after 3 seasons. Glee was so good and so popular, and then they jumped the shark, and it stopped becoming... For me, it changed.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just because those characters left, but at the same time those characters left, it adapted into a political show.
Yes.
And pushing the boundaries.
Yes.
And I get that that's important to do. And I understand kind of the thought process behind that, but it didn't fit for the show.
Right.
If it's a show that's meant to do that, then that makes sense and that's fine. But for me, this show, it shifted dramatically to something that I just wasn't interested in. It wasn't fun and light. It was too serious.
Yep.
It was dark and serious.
I think they could have ended it after 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Because I was watching it. I didn't finish it.
I didn't either. I quit after the
I
third
didn't
or
finish
fourth.
it. I didn't even get to the point where like the main characters had left, even though I think that was like the season after I stopped. But the reason I stopped watching was I sang in choirs growing up in high school. I sang in barbershop quartets. I sang in bands. I sang in, jazz choirs and madrigals. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff. So for me, I was like, ooh, I'd like to see some of this represented. They did fun music. They did music mashups that were really good.
Right.
And it was really entertaining. And the drama was the high school teenage drama. But it was, I think, in the 3rd season where the showrunner, who said that he had a very specific agenda that he wanted to push. And now that the show was massively popular and he had more freedom to push boundaries, he decided he wanted to do that.
Right.
And for me, it was an episode where one of the kids had either realized he was gay or decided to come out as gay and wasn't accepted or was afraid of how his parents were going to do it.
Right.
And so he attempted to commit suicide by hanging himself from a belt in a closet.
Yep. It got too dark.
And it got too dark. I understand that's a very real issue.
Right.
And it's a very tragic issue.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely something that happens in real life, so it should be reflected in entertainment. I get that. But unfortunately for me, I saw this show as more, it was fun. I mean,
it's an escape.
We were doing these mashups of like Journey with, hip hop.
Yeah.
And we were seeing, it was this stuff, and it was kind of the cattiness, and all of a sudden, now the drama is about very serious, important topics.
Right.
And we got away from the fun.
Yep.
And it just shifted tonally enough that I went, this isn't what I wanted to watch, and it's not what I want to choose to spend my time watching.
Yeah.
I can have those conversations with people. We can discuss things like I can be involved in that, but I don't want to be involved in that every single week. I'm spending some of my time away from my normal life. I wanted to be entertained and not have to kind of go through all those political stuff that they got really heavy into. And so I think that's a show you could have capped it at 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And it just would have been fine. I think it went on too far for the reasons you talked about with, main characters leaving and trying to figure out how do we still do this? How do we still kind of keep the ball rolling? And the fact that the tone of the show just shifted.
It changed.
To very, very dark, kind of heavy political. We're going to push a certain agenda. And for me, it took me out of what I came to the show for in the beginning.
Right, and it's not that we disagree with the
Not at
political agendas
Not
that
at
are
all.
happening, but that's not what the show is.
Or at least not how it started, for entertainment. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I'm going to go to Game of Thrones.
Of course, I knew it.
I mean, obviously, the show ended poorly. The finale was bad.
Yeah.
That whole last season was bad. Here's the problem. I think they should have ended the show after they ran out of material that George R.R. Martin, the author of the book series A Song of Ice and Fire, I think they should have stopped the show there. Because after they went through all of the material they had, and they adapted some of it, when they started getting into the unknown territory where they were just now kind of flying on their own, we definitely saw the D.B. Wise and
Bringhoff or
David Benioff. Benioff. They really struggled as writers themselves to find a way to kind of write an ending and write those last 2-ish seasons, 2.5-ish seasons, and the quality of the show started going down. And the quality of the characters and the character arcs and the character development all started going down. Production values were still real high. Yeah. HBO is still pumping tons of money into it.
Yep.
So you can watch all the way up till the final season and still feel that it's, still a really well done show. And even in the last season, all the production stuff is fine. But the content of the characters that you cared about starts that downward slide, and by the time you get to that final season, it is just rough. I mean, they're flying without a net on that high wire, and they fell. And they fell hard. So I would have liked to have seen them actually stop where the books ended for a few reasons. One, we would have had this great show that would have been tight writing and well done through the end of, that 5th season-ish or so, 6th season when they kind of hit that point. Also, it would have stopped right where the book stopped, so now you're not going beyond and taking guesses.
Yeah.
But also it would have been an opportunity for them to maybe say, well, let's take a couple-year break. Let's see if Martin comes up with the next book.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
And then potentially they could come back, because we're in this era of rebooting and reimagining.
Yeah.
And they could have taken a long break, because they started taking these long breaks. All of a sudden, instead of getting a new season every year, now it's now we have 18 months between seasons, because they were trying to figure out what to do and they didn't even know. So Game of Thrones is one that could have ended earlier.
Okay. I will have to take your word on that.
Yeah.
And the word of literally every person I've ever met in my life.
That's true.
I'm going to go with the only one on this list that I am familiar with that's left, and that's Chuck.
Oh, yes.
And you've talked about Chuck, and you're the reason that I started watching Chuck. Jesse and I are really enjoying Chuck. So we can't speak to how long the series should go. However, we are probably 3/4 of the way through the first season, and then a bunch of stuff happened and we haven't gotten back to it. But Jesse and I thought, how does this go for as many seasons as it does?
Yeah.
How much longer can this happen? Just the way that it's happening now.
Yeah.
Which is Again, there is obviously overarching stories and there's love interest and, there's the things you expect in a TV show. But the premise of the show, I'm like, how can this continue to go and still be good? It has happened before.
Yep.
Shows are still good. For me, shows like Psych, which are similar in that it's a comedy, but that also, Psych is just a psychic detective and this is, or Monk, like all of these shows, they're good. I don't know. Chuck, so tell me about Chuck.
So Chuck, in my opinion, they could have ended after the second season.
Okay.
They maybe could have done the third season because that still wasn't bad. When you got to, I think, the fourth, which I think is the final season.
Right.
For me, the wheels are off it narratively. It's just a mess. Chuck was a great show. It is very funny. Situationally, it's a lot of fun to watch the character of Chuck Bartowski be put into these positions where
he's totally outmatched.
It's the fish out of water story.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's a lot of fun.
And that's a great scenario for comedy. The second season is still really good. After that, it's diminishing returns, and by the end, it's bad.
It's dead.
I tried rewatching that show with Brita a few times. I watched the first season. I watched the second season. I watched most of the third season, or maybe the third season. By the time we start the fourth season, I stop watching it every time.
Okay.
And Brita will finish it, and she really said, it's good, and I like it. Brita, though, is more of the ride or die. She's going to finish up. Like, she wanted to finish up Big Bang. I could have stopped watching Big Bang. I watched Big Bang maybe like 3 seasons past when I was really just like done.
Yeah.
Because Brita wanted to watch it together, and she still was invested in it.
Yeah.
So Brita very much is ride or die. I'm going to watch it to the very, very end. She watched the Once Upon a Time all the way till the very end and whatnot. So Chuck is a great show in the beginning, 2 seasons.
Okay.
You probably could have capped it after that.
That makes sense. That sounds right to me.
Maybe a little bit of the third season. I'd have to go back and I'd have to look at a synopsis of what the third season is to tell you. The last one I have was Heroes. This show at the time had such an amazing premise. The first season was so good. There's ordinary, regular people that realize they have superpowers. And this first season, you had this lovable Japanese man that has the ability to, like, time travel. You have this cheerleader girl who realizes that her body can't be broken. Like, she can recover from any sort of broken bone injury.
Yeah.
You have this character who looks like he's going to enable, like it's kind of looking like he's going to be the one that's going to be like the ultimate hero to take on the ultimate villain because he can borrow other people's abilities.
Yeah.
And then you have this villain who has the ability to basically remove other people's abilities, and he has to kill them in the process, and then consume a piece of their brain or something, and then he gains their power. So, like, it was this huge story where, like, you see this villain going around starting to kill these people that have abilities, and then this hero who's starting to, like, make connections, and, like, they're building towards this storyline of, we're going to show the one that's absorbing destructively people's abilities versus the one that can borrow without removing their abilities, and, like, that's going to be the big clash.
Yeah.
And they build towards this moment, and then they don't resolve that at the end of the first season. And I went, okay, it's going to go to the next season.
Yeah.
And then the next season kind of takes a little bit of a time jump, and they start doing things, and they start introducing other characters, and they never kind of get back, and then pretty soon they start shifting. The villain's no longer the villain. He's kind of making a good turn.
Right.
And the good guy is kind of, like, completely removed from it. And then I think I even watched into the third season, and then there's this other, like, the show had kind of this amazing premise, but they wanted it to be similar to Lost in that we're going to have all these cliffhangers, and we're going to have all these unexplained mysteries, and it just kind of went sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the point where, like, the final season came on TV, I think. And I think I watched, like, the first 2 episodes, and we still weren't getting back to where the show was, what the premise was. It was just, it kept morphing and changing, like the writers didn't know what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And I just turned it off and I said, nope, I'm done. I think that show should have ran one season, and I think they should have resolved the story that built up over that entire first season and just capped it there.
Yeah.
And I think that would be fine.
Yep. There are a lot of seasons there's a lot of shows I think that would have been really good one season shows.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them. And they get off the rails after the first season. They have one good idea.
Like even The Good Place, which I love.
Yeah, I love The Good Place.
I think that show went a little too long.
It felt in that last season a little bit like it was being a little drawn out. Yeah. I do agree. And that's a great show. The Designated Survivor, just to throw that out there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hate everything after the first season, I think.
We finished the first season and we've never gone back and watched anymore.
It gets awful. Like that's speaking of shows that should have ended, that's what I'm gonna say. Designated Survivor, great premise. Kiefer Sutherland again in a really cool role as an impromptu president.
Yeah.
That gets terrible after the first season.
So, Matt, I think this is kind of an interesting idea, right? Shows that went on too long.
Mm-hmm.
Some shows jumped the shark, metaphorically.
Yep.
Some shows were just trying to stretch out to make a buck. Some shows actually self-sabotaged themselves.
Yep.
Self-sabotage themselves? That doesn't,
well,
they self-sabotaged.
Well, redundant, but,
kind of like your heartlessness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's got to be a really, really tough spot because you've got the pull of the network or whoever's producing the show that if they have a hit on their hands,
you don't want to let it go.
You don't want to let it go. You don't want to have to go develop a new property. So you keep pulling the strings to try to keep it going as long as you can. Versus the other side of that equation is the artistic creative types that have come up with this idea that they want to tell cohesive stories.
Right.
And they want to have solid endings.
Yep.
I think that that's a very interesting idea because this isn't something that's going to be like, hey, we just saw this happen during the late 90s, early 2000s, 2010s. Right. I think this is going to be something we're going to see repeat itself over and over and over as long as we have television or streaming services that, produce content.
Yep.
So, anyway, Super Friends, we've given you a huge long list of a bunch of shows that we came up with, but we want to hear from you. Is there other TV shows that we didn't have on our list that went too long? What shows are they? Why did they go too long? Let us know next week because we'll actually do the question of the week next week.
Yes, we will. We promise.
Yep. And you can let us know on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on the email. And we will talk about that next week. I'm curious if there's other things that we missed or maybe weren't thinking of.
I'm sure there are things that we missed. I'm sure there are. Yeah. And the Super Friends will help us out.
Yeah. And Matt, I got to say, as we're kind of wrapping up the episode here of the podcast, I think this was a lot of fun doing this in person.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe one day down the road, if the Stapletons and Shaws can relocate into a similar vein, we'll be able to do this more often.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
This feels like the better way.
It is. It's more natural. Yeah, it works.
Yeah. So anyway, from all of us here together, for the first time at the Fortress of Nerditude, to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you always.